Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. Boy, was there just a chaotic moment behind the scenes here at here.
There's some serious goblin energy in the studio tonight,
Some
and
serious
weirdly,
goblin
I'm
energy.
not the source of it.
Not at
We
all.
wouldn't have it any other way, you know? We wouldn't want it any other way.
Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ramblemancy. We really don't have a whole lot in the way of announcements, so we're probably just going to get right into our ramble. But I saw a whole heck of a lot of you in there. I seem to have lost my chat window. It has disappeared.
I see we have a Geek Outs. Steve, Hermes, hello! Derpanduin, hello. It is good to see you, peeking in the Aura's eyes. Churl GM, hello. It is good to see you in here. Welcome. And we also have Scribbler, hi, Amity O'Cramity, Cam Numa, and Hessen telling me about just what sounds like a rad fucking tabletop RPG before the show in chat. The words... I have to be clear that the words Dark Fae Arthurian Fantasy with modular heraldry character sheets is the most condensed badassery that you could have delivered to me in like 10 words about a tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Also, Newly Human. Hello. Ramble.
Ramble.
When is there not before you push the button? It reminds me of, I think, coming back from the break on one of the EXU Calamity episodes. I know that Cast has the tradition of saying a bunch of just, like, obscene things to Matt right before the cameras and mics go live, but, like, Brennan doubled down on it by looking straight at the camera and going, Sam just said taint, and then went straight into, like, straight into announcements.
I love that. That's best.
That's the energy that I hope to bring to the pre-button press someday.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want everybody to know, on the subject of goblin energy, Cole was emerging from the bedroom and basically needed to get their tablet, which was over there. The exit to this room is over there. So Cole came running through here, just like running across the back, grabbed their tablet, and then ran back the other way. And it legitimately was the most goblin scooting kind of run. It was very funny, and I really wish that I wish that I had gone live at that moment. And it was a poorly sort of taken opportunity, unfortunately. So
I looked up just in time to see this like sort of dark blur go noom right past Lucas behind him. It's perfect.
But it is recorded.
Is it?
Just
is it?
Is it?
No, I don't think that's how that works. Because I'm not recording on my end.
Just realized that, yeah.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, nobody gets to see that. Unfortunately, I suppose I could get Cole to come back and do a goblin run through the background again, but
live reenactment.
Exactly. But yeah, welcome on in, everybody. We are just gonna jump on into it. John, what are we talking about tonight?
That's a good question, Lucas, and I'm so glad that you asked me.
I am also glad I asked you.
I'm so glad that you asked me this question. Honest to God, most of what I have been thinking about this week is Metroidvanias, because I get to do that thing that I do where I sit in my friend's chat and go, do you want to play Super Metroid? Until they finally cave. And then I play Super Metroid on their stream with them. I'm doing that tomorrow with Bree. So I went and I picked up like a Switch compatible Super NES controller. And everything. So we are like good to go this weekend, but I've been playing Super Metroid again this week, and then some of my friends have been playing like Ori randomizers and like some Hollow Knight randomizers and a bunch of other stuff. And so I've just had like platformer Metroidvanias on the brain all week.
Nice.
And it's a fun place to be because the level design in those games is so cool. And I think like it's a really fun, especially those 2D platformers and Metroidvania style games. Like it's really fun to see the ways I think the thing that is the most fun about those games for me is the fact that most of the time there are like hard limits to like, okay, if you don't have the upgrade that lets you make yourself small, you can't go through this little tunnel and go on to the next area. And like those are like your hard limits in level design, right? But then there are ones that are like, okay, so if you know how to do this weird trick, or if you know pretty well how the game works, then you can kind of abuse the mechanics a little bit. And if you even if you don't have the upgrade that would trivialize this room, you can kind of like squeak by. And that like I love when that happens by accident. If, for instance, we're talking about Super Metroid because the game was programmed on particularly colorful duct tape. But it's also super fun to see when level designers do that intentionally. Like it's like, okay, yeah. So if you execute a very like tight sequence of 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 moves across this room, you can get to the other side and feel proud of yourself, or you can just go get the upgrade, and backtrack a bunch and make this actually easy on yourself. So I don't know, like it's fun when level designers do that intentionally. It's like, I know what you're doing. You're challenging me, and I will not let this stand. One of my favorite things about Metroidvanias. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about that this week.
Nice.
So,
Yeah,
magical duct tape. John Boyle, 2023.
I'm always a big fan of that kind of thing in games where like there's the way that you probably should be doing it, but then there's just as obviously like a way that you weren't intended to do it, but you absolutely could do it. Like, I'm trying to think of, there's a game that I'm like always finding, I'm trying to remember. There was a game where I do that a lot, where I like cut corners a lot, and when I really probably shouldn't, but it does make things go faster. And I cannot think of what game that is that I like. Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Huh.
Yeah, I can't think of it now, but it is like one of my favorite things where like it's not even like it was built in like an intentional you could do this or this. It's more like a just, hey, if you're good enough, you can just fuck off past this entire section that we like tried to make you do.
I suppose there's a little bit of that in Skyrim. I don't think that's the one you were thinking about.
I don't think so, but yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Skyrim's, yeah.
Like it, and it really the fun thing about games like Skyrim too is when you can do that depends heavily on what kind of character you have. So like, you're with something like the standard layout of a Metroidvania, like, oh well, I can get past this without missiles, but you can come to a variety of dungeons which are fairly complex like entities in games like Skyrim, and so I think those are really fun because like, okay, well, normally I would just sneak past these guys, but my sneak is 15, so how am I going to solve this instead?
Yeah.
Like,
Related, actually, like on what Hermes was just saying, game, let's go A to B to C. Lucas, how about A to B to Q? Fuck your design. And like that related, I love games like, I think KOTOR does this pretty well. I'm trying to remember if the sequel does it as well, but where you can like, if you don't care about how you get a thing done, you can kind of just brute force your way through the whole game. It will probably result in you having to fight a lot more than you would have otherwise, but it means you aren't doing as many meaningless fetch quests. But it means that you are going to end up in a lot more like intense combats. And I love when games do that. And it's like KOTOR does it. I've been So here's a fun fact, since we're talking about video games. I am currently doing, for the first time ever, because I just picked up Dragon Age 2, which I've never played before. I'm for the first time ever doing a full playthrough of the Dragon Age series. I finished the Dragon Age Origins storyline, like the main storyline. I'm currently working on Dragon Age Awakenings, which is the big DLC for Origins, and then I'm going to move on to Dragon Age 2, which I've never played before. But yeah, anyway, the point is Dragon Age Origins is a lot like that. There's a lot of sequences in that game where like you could just, like talk to this person and they're not going to help you unless you do this other thing. So you got to go do that other thing and then you come back and then they'll help you and then you can progress with the story. Or you can just be like, what if I kill you though? And then you fight them and it's usually really hard, but you could do it if you're prepared enough. And yeah, I love things like that in games because it like means that there's like meaningful choices, because then you got to weigh like, okay, do I want to put the resources into this fight, or do I want to like just get this over with, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's good design too, because like it appeals to different kinds of players, right? There is the player who is going to want to go and talk to all the people and do the different quests and run around because it's like perhaps less mechanically intense, where they have to deal less with combat, and that's not what they're in the game for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so like that player gets to still solve this quest, whereas, you know, somebody who's like, you know, as Neely Human put it, I'm just gonna punch, stab, and slash repeatedly until this is over, right?
This is Hermes said exactly what I was thinking, which is the eternal Mass Effect Renegade versus Paragon dilemma, and it absolutely is that. It's like, do we go straight from point A to point B? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, or do we try to like finesse the situation? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Renegade when it's fun or funny. Paragon the rest of the time. That's fair. Yeah. Listen, sometimes there are people in the Mass Effect series that just gotta be punched. Like, sometimes you just gotta punch them.
It's true. Nico said, John, you need to play Neon White already. I know I need to play Neon White. I'm honest to God, in my stream, I think after I finish Cult of the Lamb, I'm just going to have like Metroidvania Monday, and I'm just going to go through the backlog of all the Metroidvanias and like platforming games that I need to play, because
yeah,
like I have to. What was that one that you played a while back, Lucas, that I also need to?
Ghost Runner.
Ghost Runner, I should probably beat at some point.
Ghost Runner is like so fun. Like, it's frustrating, but like it stops itself from being frustrating by like having an instantaneous restart.
Yeah,
like you die instantaneously, but you also reload instantaneously, and I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think that's what stops that game from being just like super obnoxious. The puzzles are relatively short, and then if you fuck it up, you're just back at the beginning of it again. And you can try
it can be really frustrating, but when you do it right, it just feels so fucking cool. It just feels so cool. Also, I want to point out that Hessen made a really good point, which is that those, like, meaning the moments where you can decide whether you want to fight somebody or like do their fetch quest for them, also reward you if you have pushed yourself to be above level, which I never have, so I always finesse the situation. But yes, you're absolutely right. Like, if you like over level yourself, absolutely, that's a very rewarding thing, because then you can just be like, actually, I'm just going to fight my way through this.
Yeah, I remember actually, Cam, like, speaking of that makes deaths less annoying. I've been playing a fair bit of Destiny the last couple of weeks, and there was like the one of the missions that you have to do to get an exotic weapon this season. There was a section of it that had like a 30-second or a 45-second respawn timer, and I was like, Bungie, why? For basically like fucking up a mechanic that just instantly killed you and sent you back to the beginning. And I was like, this should be like a 5-second reset, not a I'm just like sitting here waiting for 45 seconds because I suck at memorizing a pattern, which I'm just not good at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Destiny, John, sounds fake. Yeah, I don't know what would give you the
idea. Hermes, sorry, child, I have to level skip this part of the game, so you're an orphan now, but I have this really cool armor now. Cheers.
Cheers.
You know what? I played through the Origin storyline on a normal difficulty, and I gotta say, at least in terms of like healing poultices and like lyrium potions and stuff like that, it is resources are really scarce. You gotta know where to look, and like you gotta like invest early on in like the potion making and whatever. And it's just like I fought like the last third. I went through the last third of that game with no health potions, no lyrium potions. I was just like, it was rough.
I saw there's a fun
it's a hard game. Anyway, continue.
There's a fun YouTuber who has an entire channel that's kind of just basically dedicated to that, called Game Champ 3000. If you have not, I watched 2 of their videos recently at a friend's behest, and I was like, oh, these are fucking wild. And also I was like, I see myself in these, because it was the kind of thing where it was like, can you beat Metroid, the original Metroid, without killing anything but the mother brain? The answer is yes. But watching them basically figure out how to clip themselves into a wall and vibrate their way up until like they clipped back in through the bottom of the level into a door that they could get through, so they wouldn't have to spend any missiles to open the door, because they can't kill things to get missiles back. Hysterical. There was another one that they did where it was like one of the Kingdom Hearts games. It was like a card based like deck building one, and you would build up like a deck of things to like cards to use in combat. But like, can you beat the game with only one card? And there's like a 3-second reload between the end of your deck and the beginning of your deck, and so you have like the weakest attack in the game to try and beat everything. And it took them like months, and I was like, this is bananas, this is so ridiculous. But I was like, also there is something I can see myself in this, going like, okay, so if I buffer like a little bit of reload in between each one of the attacks and this boss's attack pattern, I can already hear it whirring in my head. I'm like, oh no, I like this content because it is me. They spent so much time wondering if they could ... Yes, exactly.
I found sorry, I went back because I saw Newly Human said something that I thought was interesting about like if it can be brute force, that's what they'll be doing, you know, like in a game. And like I think it's really interesting because it's a good point, because what I have found, especially in more recent games, is that they give you these options like, oh, you can brute force this situation and just go right through it, or you can go this really roundabout way that'll give you the tools you need to solve this problem. But like there's never really any consequences for, like, you can just do it, you know? You can just brute force through like the problem, and like it's not difficult, and if you go and do like the super roundabout way, then it becomes trivial. Have you encountered that kind of thing in games? I feel like I've seen that a lot in games, where it's like this thing that's like built up to be, this is really hard and difficult, and so you should go and do this really long roundabout thing. But then if you don't do that, it's like fine, and it really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I feel like I see that most when like the game fails to deliver on like a level of difficulty that was promised, like mechanically. Like the game is like, oh yeah, you know, this is a very powerful foe that you're going to face, but then you get something that like trivializes the fight. Like there's always a fine line, I feel like, to ride, no matter the genre of the game.
Yeah.
Of like, we're going to give you a tool that will allow you to beat this boss or advance in the game.
Yeah.
And making the fight like rely on that, but not feel gimmicky.
Yeah. And I think Churl said it. I think it's just a consequence of games getting much easier overall. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, which I've seen. Which, like, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with that, really. I mean, I do in some... I have a problem with the execution of how I've seen it done. Because I think it's cool if you have options. You have like difficulty settings in your game, right? That like make it so, like, the story mode difficulty is incredible. I love that shit. I don't use it myself very often, but I like that it exists, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I'm glad that those things exist. What I'm not a big fan of is just making a game just sort of overall very easy, and then allowing you to do essentially the extra credit work to like make it trivial. And I'm like, why are we doing this? This feels like not worth the time, I suppose. I don't know. It's maybe that's just me, but like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm definitely all here for
What'd you say, Freeman?
I was just saying that sounds more complicated. Just have settings to make the game difficult or not.
Yeah.
Depending on how you feel. I love a game that I can set for an easy game, because sometimes the day or the week has just been shit, and you just want something easy to play through. And not
Yeah.
But,
or like me when I'm playing through Mass Effect, and I don't like all of Mass Effect. I can't just not play the first game, but I'd rather not have to. So I just put it on like the easiest difficulty and just stomp my way through it.
Yeah. 100%. Well, it's like when I play Path of Exile, it's like, yes, I have played the 10-act story of this game so many times. I am just going to put on a bunch of leveling gear that absolutely trivializes this and turn off my brain for 3 hours, and then I'll be
Mhm.
done. And then I'll get to the part where I actually get to play the interesting version of the character that I want to play.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. I think there's
Honestly, like
also
Skyrim. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say Skyrim. When you play the the easy version of Skyrim, obviously is like setting it for like easy setting, but also just playing a sneaky archer character is also playing Skyrim on easy. If I'm being perfectly honest.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And if
It
you,
absolutely is that.
especially after you've done it for a while, you get really good at like at at, um, at the archery skill, even without the skill tree.
Yeah, and I'll
And
admit,
so you just
I
avoid a lot of things.
listen. I'll admit I had to do it just like last night when I was playing Dragon Age Origins. Right, like there was this really nasty fight that I couldn't get through, no matter how many different iterations of like tactics and whatever. And I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. I'm just gonna turn it down to easy mode, stomp my way through it, and then turn it back up. And that's what I
I've
did,
done
and
that
it was
before.
fine. Sometimes, look, sometimes in video games there are fights that are just not balanced well. Sometimes it happens, and like you just gotta be okay with turning down the difficulty.
Yeah.
Sometimes Alduin has two separate breath weapons, a fire and ice, and I don't want to like carry around a bow that does ice damage and a bow that does fire damage.
Mhm. Also, like especially in games like Dragon Age Origins, where you have a choice as to your like not only your like skills, your skill trees that you invest in, but also your party composition. Like you can decide who comes with you, right? Like you might not always choose the optimum combo for what you're gonna be doing, and sometimes, like I have genuinely. There have been times playing that game. This is one of the reasons why Origins, if you haven't been able to detect it, Dragon Age Origins is one of my favorite games of all time. One of the reasons I love it so much is because legitimately there have been like combats in that game where I was had a specific party composition and I just kept getting smoked over and over again no matter what I did, and then I backed out of it, reloaded an earlier save, came back with a different party composition and just stomped my way through the whole thing. And like it makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hermes earlier said, I think Hades did a good job with God mode. I can play Hades as normal, but when I want to see the story, I turn on God mode. And there have been evenings before, like, where I'm really tired. Like, when I'm on my game playing action RPGs, I can be very, very good at them.
Mm-hmm.
When I am tired and sleepy and it's the end of the week and I've been like doing I'm like doing a bunch of like streaming or like game writing or editing or like helping produce, like, you know, if I've been super busy, sometimes I'm just like, I just want to beat up my dad. And so I'll just turn on God mode for a couple of runs.
Yeah. Rainy, that yes, the Broodmother is one of the worst fights in Dragon Age Origins, but the build up to it is just it's incredible. Like the build up to that fight. Huh, it's so good and creepy, and it always just like
Mm-hmm.
they did a really good job of making you feel really disgusted with the Darkspawn and just like what they are and what they do. It's but like yeah, that fight sucks, but like but the aesthetics also suck, but they're cool. It's cool the way they did it.
Afro Dutch, hello. I saw you just popped in. I said Coromon does that. You can choose to play a Nuzlocke version. That's really cool. Like I know Pokemon will never do this because as far as Nintendo is concerned, if you are older than 9, you should not be playing their video game. But it would be really cool to see a version of Pokemon that did include just built-in Nuzlocke mechanics, and like adjustable Nuzlocke mechanics. I'm glad to like. It's cool to see that there is like a game in that same kind of genre that has it built in. That's really neat.
Okay.
To make challenge runs easier.
Okay, I don't know. For years, I've heard everybody talk about Nuzlocke, and I don't know what Nuzlocke is, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
The short version is that a Nuzlocke is a run through. There's a reason that it's named like that. I think because like of the player's name and like the Pokemon they use to beat it or something. A Nuzleaf was, I think, the Pokemon. I don't know. Anyway, the way that those runs work is for each unique zone in the Pokemon game, because there's always the different routes, and then sometimes there's little sub areas and side areas that are filled with Pokemon that you can catch. For each unique zone, you must catch the first Pokemon that you encounter, and you can catch no other Pokemon. If one of your Pokemon that you've caught faints, some people say you have to immediately release it, and they're like, it's dead. And some other people you just have to put it in your box and can't use it anymore. But that's the rules of the game. You catch the first Pokemon you come across. You can only catch one Pokemon per unique area, and if one of your Pokemon faints, it's out of the run and you can't use it anymore.
Okay.
There's lots of ways that people will modify them. Say, some people will do you can't use EXP share, you can't use candies that will boost your Pokemon's level without them battling. You can't use these kinds of items. You can't there's lots of ways to kind of tweak it and customize it. One of my friends is absolutely bananas in that he will not allow himself to use any EXP boosting items on his Pokemon, and then he will also use one of just the flimsiest, lowest odds Pokeball, and that's the only Pokemon he's allowed to use if he catches them in that specific Pokeball. And so you can really go wild customizing your Pokemon challenge run. The basis of it is those first 3 rules.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Yeah, no, I'm always hearing people talking about it, and it's particularly in our group of friends, John, and I'm just what is that? Anyway, here we are.
No buying from the shop is also a common restriction. Yeah, that's another one.
After almost 10 years of hearing people talking about Nuzlocke, I finally know what that is.
Oh yeah, that's why. Because they're that's what they are. They're just it's a challenge run of Pokemon where you're amping up the difficulty by making it so that when your Pokemon faint, you can't use them anymore, and you have a limited selection of Pokemon. Which actually it makes it is a really fun way to modify the game's difficulty, because especially as the years have gone on, Pokemon games have gotten easier and easier and easier and easier to the point where most often your rival will pick a type disadvantage when you pick your starter, so that your rival fights are more just little benchmarks to be hey, you've been training your Pokemon at all? Great. But a lot of people will a lot of folks our age who still like to play the new Pokemon games when they come out will oftentimes modify their Pokemon runs that way. Okay. And it can provide really interesting ways, because you're okay, I have this limited team of Pokemon to work with. I can't just go catch the best possible Pokemon, juice them up with a bunch of EXP candy, and then have the best possible team to fight every single gym leader. It is an interesting way to modify and see okay, well, what moves can the team that I have learn, and how can I use that to my advantage against this boss, or this gym leader. I don't know, they're pretty fun.
Cool. While you were talking, I had a thought that just sort of something that I'm curious about. I have my opinions, but I'm curious about your opinions and your opinions. So video games. Here we go. Here's the topic. Here's the debate. The debate we got going. Well, it doesn't have to be a debate. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Level areas or leveled lists. So level locked areas or leveled lists that where creatures and all that and equipment and stuff like that level with you as you proceed throughout the game.
Ooh. That's interesting.
I may need an example, since I just don't
Skyrim is an example of leveled lists, where as you get more as you level up, the bandits and stuff like that have better equipment. They level up. They're around you. The world, you start seeing more dangerous creatures, things like that. And then level locked areas is more. Well, they don't have to be locked. In fact, I prefer when they're not locked. But leveled areas are where this region is for levels 1 through 5, and this region is for levels 6 through 10 or whatever that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I prefer it when the game is mostly level I think my best answer is I like a little bit of both. I like the game to change a little bit when I come back to prior areas, so it's not just necessarily like, ah, yes, here are all of the level 1 bandits when I come back to around Whiterun or whatever. Like I do like it if I'm gonna like come clear this out again, if it's filled in with maybe people who are a little bit tougher now that I'm a high level dragonborn. But I think Nico made a good point, is that I like the way that leveled areas make it feel like there's more of a like area to area progression, and I think in a lot of games that works well. But I definitely think there are probably some games where it works better the other way around, like the world growing. I think the world growing more dangerous makes sense for some genres of games.
Yeah, I agree. I think also, see, I tricked you all. I set this up as a false dichotomy. No, no, but I think between like Hassan and Hermes together, their comments I think are where I sort of tend to sit as well. Because Hassan makes a great point, which is I think it really depends on the game theme. So like, if you are playing a game like, I don't know, a very sort of like linear game, obviously you want the areas, every new area that you enter to be like a, progressively difficult, or else like what's the point? And then Hermes said level varied areas can be really satisfying, but I'm so used to levels with you. And I think that's really interesting, because I think that's the kind of thing that I like. But I think I'm with you on that one, Hermes. But that only really works in like an open world sort of game, right? Because in an open world style game, kind of going back to what Hassan said, right? It depends on the game, right? Because I think I like the idea that there are level varied areas where like you can go into those areas and do things and have fun playing the game, doing stuff and actually accomplishing things. But if you go in the wrong place, you're gonna get your ass handed to you, right? Because then that goes more into like what Nico was talking about, which is that then progression matters, right? Like level progression matters, because then you can come back later and you're like, all right, try to kill me now, motherfucker, right? So
that's
yeah.
a really fun feeling. Like I've finally, like my computer can actually handle Horizon Zero Dawn, and so I've been slowly playing through that some evenings. And there is something very satisfying about coming into an area and being like, oh god, that's a big machine. And then going and unlocking some stuff and coming back and being like, I can take you. So, yeah.
Yeah. See, because like my reasoning here, I think, is that, because I agree with Nico, and I think that Hermes is right that like the level varied areas are the solution to that problem. But like, as far as leveled areas being by itself being the solution, I'm not sure that I agree with that, because in my mind, isn't that just kind of the same as like, because if you like get to a certain level and then you're like, all right, now I'm going to go to the level appropriate area, then things are relatively like the same difficulty as if the whole world was leveling up with you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have strong opinions about any of this. Although I think my strongest inclination is to what Hermes said, is like level varied. But I was just curious as to what people had to say about that, because, yeah.
Matt asked, what do you think about the lore? The lore drops in Horizon Zero Dawn are super fun. And as Matt said, I have never been more excited to read a wall of text in my life than in Horizon Zero Dawn. Also, Afro Dutch had a really good question, which was, how do you feel about scaling a character to level?
Ooh, interesting.
Level scaling is ooh.
So like, you're talking about the thing where you enter an area with your character, and that character might be under leveled, but then all of your like gear and stuff like that gets scaled up to that, and vice versa.
Like Guild Wars 2 did.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I think I personally like it. There are some games that have the option to turn leveling, like downscaling or upscaling on and off, and I think that's cool too. But I like it because it does like allow me a little bit to, like, when I go back to those, starting zones, or if, for instance, Troll mentioned Final Fantasy 14, if I go into the roulette and I bounce into a, character level 14 dungeon when 90 is the cap, it's, I still have to, I can still turn my brain off most of the way because it's a very, very low level dungeon with very few mechanics. I have very few character skills to think about now that I've been scaled down. But like when you scale down a character that's at 100% of their possible stat value at 80, they're still going to be pretty strong compared to a bona fide level 14 character. And so like I do still get to, there's some degree of challenge present, because if I don't pay attention, I've been downscaled. I'll get mowed over. But not so much that like I have to be fully engaged as I might have been if I was playing this at level. So I do like that. I like that in games.
I'm very mixed about that kind of thing, because on the one hand, it does offer the ability to, like, for players to experience the wide breadth of whatever content the game has to offer without it being locked behind like progression in a lot of ways, right? It's, and like you said, it still is in those cases, it still is better to be the actual level that you need to be, because it is like, but for me, and I think backwards replayability for certain areas also is good and is a positive of that design. But to me, it has always made me question, because somebody mentioned the Old Republic, Hessen mentioned the Old Republic, and it, like, when they introduced it there, it just made me think, like, then what is the point of having the levels then? You know what I mean? Like, it does a little bit sort of like, I don't know. I don't have strong opinions about this, and I really haven't thought about it that much, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think Final Fantasy does downscale you, but Final Fantasy downscales you in a way that I don't particularly like, which is that they take away your skills.
Ooh, yeah.
So like I go back to having only the skills that I had available at that level. And I don't find that particularly fun. Like I don't like Schaefer, who mains Dancer in 14, the ability to have the class's main mechanic, a dance partner who you share your buffs with and give damage buffs to, you don't get until like level 60. And most of the dungeons, because level cap is 90, are below level 60. So if you're doing roulettes on, say, Dancer, then you just like don't get to have your class mechanic most of the time, and that's not very fun. I did like the way that Guild Wars, if I'm doing something at level 10 in Guild Wars, I don't have half of the skills on my fucking utility bar, and that's hard. And I'm like understated even for my level because I'm wearing like kind of bad gear because I haven't been paying attention. But like wearing a character that's raid ready, I've been scaled back. I still have all of my abilities, even though their impact has been affected by the reduction in my stats. Like I like still being able to feel powerful when I go back to those areas, and so I like the way that games like Guild Wars do that, where I still get to keep all my skills and I still get to keep like the fact that I'm capped out on stats, but there is at least some threat present to me here. Not like I am just that level again. Like I like shooting the middle on this.
Hassan said, I think this types of upscaling and downscaling works best for multiplayer games where you can enjoy the experience together. And I think that makes a good point. Like, it's useful for playing with other people. That way you don't feel like you're, if you play more than your friend that you play with, like, you don't feel like you're getting too far ahead of them. And if you're, or vice versa, you don't feel like you're falling behind your friends if you don't play as often as they do. So I think that makes sense. I think that is a good point. That's fair. And Nico said levels in MMO are mostly just for serotonin drip feed, and you know what? You're not wrong.
You're correct.
Yeah,
you're correct. That do be how MMOs are.
It's like, ooh, number got bigger. Ooh, happy chemical go brrr.
This make brain happy. Look, crit chance went from 68% to 69%. Nice.
Well.
I like the ability to shenanigans to beat endgame stuff and take the loot XP, so I always prefer static levels in games where possible.
I also like that. See, yes, Churl, yes. That's exactly how I feel about that too. 'Cause it's so, like, listen, it's like, I like that Skyrim sort of is it does the level scale, like not like player levels, but like it does the leveled lists in a way that I think is better than the way that Oblivion did them. Because in Oblivion, if you're only like a certain, if you're under a certain level, there are just some creatures you just straight up do not see ever. You never see them. There's zero chance to see them. But Skyrim, you can be wandering around at level 5 and still wander your way accidentally into a Draugr Deathlord and like
Yes.
and but then if you are clever enough, like there's one particular dungeon, I believe it is in the College of Winterhold quest line, where there's like a gate puzzle, and then if you have it set up so like all the levers in the right place, but you just need to switch one, right, to like open and close the gate, then you can do that, and like have the Draugr chase you up to the gate, close the gate on him, and then just torch him through that. It takes fucking forever if you're under leveled, but you can do it, and he can do nothing to you. So like I love stuff like that, right? Where if you're clever enough and you use the environment or whatever, then you can like get out ahead of where you need, strictly speaking, should have been able to do, and then you get cool stuff. You get higher boosted XP, things like that. I love that.
One huge problem with Skyrim's leveling is you can't beat certain bosses with unique gear under levels because they drop worse versions of the gear. Yeah,
that is true.
I think that is that is one of the big things with Skyrim's leveling, is that like you kind of don't want to do some of those quests until you're high level, because you want to be able to use the cool, like, a new hand touches the bacon. You want to use that sword and blow up undead with it, but you also don't want it to be the equivalent of an iron sword.
Yeah.
For the whole game. And so like I know that there are mods to fix that where you can upgrade quest weapons and stuff like that, but hear me, mortal.
I have
anybody
many times. I'd rather not. Thank you, Meridia.
John activated most of chat. Yeah, anybody in here who has played Skyrim and had the misfortune of fucking opening a random chest and then hearing Meridia at max volume into their headphones. Yeah, we've all had that experience. It's like 1 a.m. You have it's like a Thursday night. You shouldn't be awake, but you are playing Skyrim anyway because you don't want to think about the paper that you have due later this week in your English class. Am I describing a real life situation? Of course not.
No, that sounded pretty universal to me, John. I don't know.
You're half asleep. You finish doing a random dungeon, and you just open the chest, and you're like, ah, cool, a steel dagger and a new hand. Oh god! And then you jump out of your chair at 1 a.m, and everybody in your dorm room wonders why you're screaming. Like, anyway, universal experience, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Oh my god.
You know, if you wait long enough to do the main quest, you can get a Daedric battle axe called the Axe of Whiterun.
That's very true.
I've never had the patience to do that, especially because I've never used the Live Another Life kind of mods where you start somewhere that's not Whiterun. But someday I am going to do that. I'm going to go be like level 60, and then I'm going to come back and be like, all right, y'all, give me the axe.
Whiterun.
Wait.
In the vanilla game, you don't start in Whiterun.
No, you start in
Riverwood, technically. Well, Helgen, but you know.
Helgen and then Riverwood.
Yeah,
but
Helgen's you can just fully avoid going to Whiterun ever. When, you know, they're like, you gotta go tell them that the dragon's coming, and then you could just absolutely not do that.
I've absolutely not gone there, yeah.
In fact, I will go anywhere but there.
Yeah. Come back, you're level 90. It's like, huh, Whiterun stables discovered. You're just like...
Oh my god. Alternate starts as a mandatory mod on every playthrough now. It's so good. I gotta start doing that just to see where I wind up.
It's true. It absolutely is.
I want to try that too.
I often never even start the quest Dragon Shouts. Dragon Shouts are way OP.
Yeah. I do, because I do like having the like fully leveled, you know, I'll usually what I do is I'll do the main quest um up until the end of the like Greybeard's quest line,
Mhm.
and then I just ignore it for a long time. Because I do it just so that I can get access to dragon shouts and I can like absorb dragon souls and you know do
Mhm.
stuff. But like, yeah,
Yeah. When it comes to the part with the blades want you to do the final, they want you to kill Parthenax, then I'm just like, nah, I'm good.
oh, that's not even what I was talking about. I was talking about way before that. But yeah, no, I
Oh,
hear
I
you.
get up to a certain point. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna kill Parthenax.
Anything to. Yup.
That's what I was reacting to. It'll do anything to avoid the Yeti on the mountain, including every other quest in the game. That motherfucker hits like a goddamn truck.
It's very funny though if you like do what I did on my last playthrough, which is like show up at like level 25 with a coffee in hand, and then he's like, "Roar," and then you just like shoot a couple fireballs at him and he's done. Like that's very funny.
It's always good. Or you have just like a really OP fire sword that you're like, hold on, let me just.
It's just like, here, Lydia, hold my latte, and then just.
I am sworn to carry your burdens. Like.
Just rolling in to like oh god, what's it called, to High Hrothgar, like hung at level 25, hungover, coffee in hand, just kind of couple fireballs, take that fucker down.
Yeah. Oh, it's all right, buddy. I gotta get up and see the Greybeards at the top of the mountain. So hold on to these for me, and my house Carl will take your number, and we'll hear from you later.
Yep. It's Nico says, literally all games as service game design is fully demonstrably focused on manipulating players' brains, and I fucking hate it. Especially all the gambling BS. I blame Blizzard. There it is. There it is. Yeah, that's absolutely. Yes, I agree. I'm really not. I just don't. I mean, this is not a particularly controversial or insightful opinion or take here, but I just don't like that kind of thing. Like, I just don't. I would much rather be able to just. I don't know. That's one of the things I liked about Star Wars Squadrons. As I genuinely thought it's absolutely the kind of game and company that would do the whole like loot box thing. And then they just didn't do that. Like there's no like you can grind in that game, but grinding in that game is like basically you increasing your real life skills at playing the game, not like like grind for 500 hours to have a chance to get this super rare thing that's going to make you unkillable to anybody under a certain amount of like that's not how Star Wars Squadrons worked, which is one of the things I appreciated about that game. Like it was purely skill based.
Miss Halo Reach was peak Halo days. That was some good shit. I haven't played a lot of Halo since Reach actually. I really enjoyed both Halo ODST and Halo Reach. It was a good era of video games. I was just thinking about games as service stuff too. I will be happy, I think, when every single online game that I play no longer has a battle pass. Like a seasonal thing that they don't make me, but they highly encourage me to pay $20 for, so that I can have, a bunch of whatever skins or like in-game materials or, exclusive weapons or whatever to like just shit at me. I look forward to us finding a model of online games that doesn't. So tired of it.
Yeah.
John, I got bad news. Yeah, I know it's more microtransactions from here on out. I understand. I know that's what makes a lot of money, but I wish games had taken after Reach's progression system more. I can't actually. I remember liking it, but I can't remember. I can't remember that much about it.
Yeah.
I never got into Halo, and like for mostly for reasons that I've discussed on this show before. But my experiences playing Halo were pretty much limited to going over to a friend's house and be like, "Hey, we should play some games. Maybe we should play some Halo," and him having put in hundreds of hours into getting good at playing Halo, and me having really never played, and also not being familiar with console controllers, and then just getting sniped every 3 seconds in the game.
Worst.
And so,
Yeah.
things like that have a tendency of turning you off to Halo. I recognize that it's probably something that, like, maybe I'll go back and, like, at some point play through them on my own terms and, like, actually play the game, not just, respawn, die, respawn, die, respawn, die,
Yep.
Yeah.
There is some good to there can be fun to be had with PvP.
Mm-hmm.
That was not one of those
No.
times.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Like when I was in middle school, I remember there were a lot of Halo 2, and then progressively as the new games came out, like different. We'd have LAN parties with a group of friends, and we would play a bunch of Halo and drink Mountain Dew and eat pizza because
Yeah.
a bunch of teenagers in the rural Midwest, and that's what we did. But we would do that a few times a year, and it got to the point where some of us who routinely played games like Call of Duty and Halo were very good at them. Like I was one of those for a while. I was one of those people who's really, really good at like PvP, multiplayer, and shooters. I don't think that I am really anymore. I haven't played a competitive shooter in a year and a half at this point now. I think I haven't played Apex in almost a year, and even then I play Apex for like a month and then put it down. But
Yeah.
I was that for a while, and it got to the point where it was like, you all are going to have a bad time. Even if I give myself 25% health and half damage, you all are going to have a bad time. So why don't we do the thing that Call of Duty made super popular with the zombies mode that a bunch of games took up then? And we wound up just playing a lot of the like Halo version of that, where it would be like increasingly difficult waves of covenant enemies would come at you.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun because everybody still got to like we were playing on a team together, and so we still got to get the experience of playing video games, and as a group, and playing a game that we liked, but it was against the computer and not against each other.
Right.
Don't have to ruin any friendships that way.
That sounds like fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Nico says you can co-op every single Halo campaign. Yeah, I know. I did play what little of Halo I did play was co-op in the first game with over at a friend's house, but that would usually be for like we'd do that for a couple hours and then we would go do absolutely anything else, and then the next time I came over, it like we either didn't play that game or we like he would have like progressed and then I'm just like jumping in at random times, so like it just was like so I had no idea what was going on at any point. So yeah, I was just like happy to be there, I guess. I was like, all right, I got a cool gun with crystals coming out of it and I'm gonna shoot everything with it.
How am I so good at this?
I know that.
The Halo 2 Needler was the best version of the Needler that ever existed, because it didn't give like every so like the Needler in that game, if you just got a certain number of the little projectiles stuck to somebody, they would super combine and explode. And it didn't matter whether or not you had shields or how much shields you had. That shit did so much damage, you just fucking died.
Yeah.
They were wildly overpowered, especially considering that you could dual wield them and double your rate of fire.
That's right. Wait, I do remember that.
Every game after that, they made it so that like they would kind of just like chip at your shields, and then if somebody got through your shields to your armor, to like your health, then like once your shields were broken, then you could super combine and kill people. And like that was fair. That was a balanced gun at that point. But it was still really fun to just walk around holding both triggers, turning everything into pink mist in front of you. Such a satisfying experience.
Okay, So here's an interesting question.
Mm.
This is one that I don't think I actually have a strong. Another question I don't have a strong opinion on, but I'm curious what you guys think. How much, like, given that scenario, how much does balance in a video game, or really in any game, how much does that actually matter to you? Like, if something is fun but totally unbalanced, like, does that matter?
I think I want my choices to feel impactful.
Mm.
And so the game can be imbalanced as long as I still feel like the choices that I make are impactful and meaningful. I think that's my take on that one. I think a lot of people think about balance in terms of like, is this overpowered? Is this really strong? Is this too strong? And like, I think like I always approach that from the standpoint of like, do my choices as a player feel like they matter? And as long as they do, then yes. And if I'm sitting at a point where it's like, well, the game will be basically solved if I just do this one thing, and like that's like game warping levels of power, then like I don't like that. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
that level of imbalance. But as long as I feel like my choices still matter as a player, then like yeah, I don't mind a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
imbalance.
Nico says, I don't think most people have actually ever played an imbalanced game, and that's fair. And I think I'm not necessarily talking about like an imbalanced game. I'm talking about like everything in the game being balanced. Like, one of the things I dislike about your standard MMOs, uh, Crystal, it wouldn't be you if I didn't
Wow.
regret giving you power. Uh, um, I think one of the things I dislike about actually I was having this conversation with Henry the other day, um, that like I just dislike about MMOs the fact that you go on this quest to discover this legendary artifact that's like extremely powerful and is a legendary item out of myth that every single other character under level 20 has done as well, and has probably since discarded because they found better stuff, right? Like, that to
Mm.
me bothers me, but that's done in for like a gameplay, like game balance reason, right? Like, you find this thing, but it's leveled. It's for the narrative and the mechanics are not matching up in that case, where the narrative is, here's this super powerful magic item, but in the game mechanics, it's like a standard level, I don't know, 18 item or something like that, right?
Right.
And then, but it's one that like anybody who is doing that series of quests has gotten, and it doesn't feel special, and it sort of undercuts the narrative, which then makes you wonder, like, why is the narrative there to begin with if it's just going to be undercut by the mechanics? And like, it's just this whole weird thing. And one of the things that I'm finding, uh, I mentioned last week that I started playing Fallout 76, and the thing that I really like about it is that, yeah, you are still somewhat bound a little by your levels because there are
Mm.
like level restrictions on certain objects and whatever. But that doesn't mean that you can't find something really cool, right? And it is like relatively unique, right? Like, just by wandering around and exploring. Um, and it's probably something that like that specific combination of like modifiers on the weapon, somebody else probably doesn't have that specific combination, most likely. Not always, obviously. It's not perfect. It's definitely not the best example I can think of. It's not definitely not the best example of this that there probably ever would has been, but it's the only one I can think of that I think goes in the right direction. And I think that's kind of the yeah, like that's the thing that I think I'm talking about, is if there's something that like you go out of your way to get it, it significantly like changes your experience of the game,
Mm.
but is not necessarily without like feeling like without the game feeling like it needs to nerf you a little bit just because you're not at that level yet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Circling all the way back around to the way that we got onto this conversation about video games, that's what I love about Metroidvanias, is because most often the things that you collect um, meaningfully change the way that you play the game, and like that's that feels good. You know, like the instant that you get speed booster in any Metroid game, you're like, oh, this is a whole new game, baby. Like, so you know, I understand what you mean. Like in an MMO or something like that, being given the Sword of Divine Ancients at level 14 from the second dungeon that you do.
Yeah.
And you wear it for 4 levels, and then you take it off when you get the Blade of the God Slayer.
Or worse still, just like a regular ass weapon that like the numbers are better than the one.
Yeah.
Like worse still, it's like not even a special sword. It's just a higher level than the special sword that you got at level 14. And like
yeah. And so like if you're gonna hand me something that has a name like Blade of the Divine Ancients, at least like let me use that weapon for a while and like maybe level it up or like make it impactful to the game in some way. Otherwise, just give me a rusty sword and I'll be like, yep, that's a rusted sword. I understand why it does not very much damage, but I suppose it does more damage than the stick you gave me in the first zone. So
yeah, like one of the things I love particularly in art
rusty toothpick. Rusty toothpick, item level 40, superior to Blade of the Divine God Slayer, item level 15.
Yeah. I mean, like I one of my favorite things, and I recognize that this is not a universal thing. Like this is just me and my I love RPGs, like video game RPGs. We all know what other kind of RPGs I like. Anyway, video game RPGs, I love them because I like. Okay, I'm gonna be real careful when I say this. I like inventory management a little because I like the idea that like I'm making do with the best weapon that I can buy, right? Because like as most gamers probably know, the weapons that you can buy are probably not as good as the weapons that you can just sort of find out in the wild, right? So making do with the best weapon that you can buy for a while, and then you're like struggling through all this, like these dungeons, whatever. And then you fight and kill like a minor boss or whatever. It has a super cool, like enchanted longsword, and you're just like, oh, holy shit, this is gonna be a total game changer. And then it is for a while, like at your like. And I love that kind of thing. I love the ability to like just sort of go to a place, find a cool thing that totally changes your experience with the game. And yeah, it makes things a little easier, makes you better at fighting and stuff like that. But that isn't so broken that it's going to like, why would I ever use another weapon? But also doesn't get trivialized later by finding something that shouldn't in the narrative be as good, right? And I like things like that. I like that kind of, I don't know. I like getting real noodly with my squad-based RPGs and being like, ooh, but if I give them this, then I can... Like, John, you listened to me play a lot of Pathfinder Kingmaker, and you know how excited I got about, like, okay, I can make this character's AC ridiculous. I think when I stopped playing...
30 or 40.
No, it was like 42, I think. I got Valerie's AC to like 42
nuts.
or something. Yeah, it was wild. Pathfinder 1E, everybody. Can do some crazy shit.
I genuinely had so much fun watching you play Pathfinder Kingmaker too, just because like that like build crafting aspect of it like made brain go brr.
Exactly. When it's done right. Because when it's done wrong, it's just a tedious mess that you're just like, oh god, do I have to do this? And you just like don't want to deal with it. Looking at you, Mass Effect 1. Anyway.
Circles around to my I'll make the point I made at the beginning, which is like, as long as my choices as a player feel impactful, whether or not I'm making the most optimal choice, I don't care. As long as I can make choices and they have a demonstrable impact and allow me to play the game in the way that I want to play it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's scare quotes here just around that, just because, like, of course, if I'm playing a certain kind of game, I know I'm expected to, like, there's a certain core gameplay, but I'm not, like, necessarily, like, I should be able to play any game however I want, pacifist runs of everything, but, within reason, like, as long as I get to play the game in whatever power fantasy I've decided within that framework.
What were you saying, Freeman?
I said that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair. That's valid.
Nico, I've played. Oh god, they get real weird. The Divinity series gets real weird with the way that they number. It's like Divinity Original Sin 2, I believe, is the one that I have played some of. And then I've played, other than that, I have played early instances. I've played Divinity 2, the Dragon Knight Saga. Is that the one you're talking about, or are you talking about Original Sin 2? Because I've played both of those things. Um, And actually, weirdly, I was a little bit thinking about Divinity 2, the Dragon Knight Saga, when I was talking about that whole thing about like going in a dungeon and finding a cool weapon. Um, yeah, yeah, they get real weird with their numberings in that series. It's kind of hard to follow. What was I gonna say? Something about that. I just like things. I have a crow brain, and I like picking up stuff. I just like picking up things in video games. Let me pick up all of the things.
Boy, a pervy lizard. My favorite type of gear is the build defining stuff like Path of Exile's uniques or D2's exotics. I know that there are some folk, like, I know that not a lot of folks in here, like to play Destiny for a variety of reasons. The kind of like slot machiney, grinding for gear is not like everybody's cup of tea. But there are things that I think are just like universally really cool about Destiny's design, and exotic items, I agree, are one of the coolest things that they've done. Because like legendary items are the regular guns that you can get through different activities and stuff, and they come with different rules. Like maybe this gun, when you get maybe this same auto rifle drops with a mod that gives you some grenade that reduces your grenade cooldown every single time you kill something with it, and it reloads the weapon when you throw your grenade. Or maybe this one has a mod that gives you a little bit of super energy every time you kill with it. And figuring out like what combinations of roles go on what can give you like different play experiences with the same gun. And that gives you a lot of choice in terms of like how you do your other gear. So you have your armor and your guns, and you can have one exotic weapon or one piece of exotic armor equipped at a time.
Cool.
So those tend to be like more powerful versions of things. For one, like they tend to be stronger than just like a regular weapon, because they're like, they use legendary gear to describe the regular guns. But the exotic weapons are more powerful, but they also tend to have like unique things that they do. A trace rifle that like, does something different, and you can only have one of those equipped in each slot. So like one exotic weapon, one exotic piece of armor, and that really changes how you think about it. You can't just put on like all of the best overstated gear and immediately be super OP. You have to make meaningful choices about, okay, what piece of exotic armor that buffs one of my abilities am I going to use? Do I want to use lots of grenades? Do I want to like rely on my dodge a bunch? Do I want to put on something that changes the way my super functions? Like, it's an elegantly designed system, I think.
Nico says, I absolutely love the legendaries and exotics are awesome, but I hate the way you acquire them. So is it like just super grindy? Is that what it is? Or like...
Yeah, sort of, because like the way that you get weapons drop basically randomly from killing enemies, and then also from the end of activities. There's typically like a little chest at the end that spits out some engrams, and then those turn into like guns or armor.
Gotcha.
And they drop armor drops specific to whatever class you're playing at the time. So if you're playing a hunter armor drops for you. Titan armor drops for you. But then every time a new gun drops, its perks are randomized. So like it can be kind of grindy. They've been over time introducing ways to make it less like do 200 strikes to get the cool pistol that drops from only strikes, like, so that they've introduced a crafting system, right, where you can craft weapons with slightly more powerful versions of perks. Not every weapon, but some weapons.
Right.
And they're working on like shooting the middle of like deterministic like farming for, okay, I want this gun, where can I go get it, and where can I farm for a little bit until I have a role that I like. So
yeah, that's definitely my least favorite way of getting stuff. It's also one of my least favorite kind of gameplay mechanics, in general. Like I don't, well documented, I think, on this channel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy the concept of like, I want this really cool sword or gun that is somewhere in the world. Let me go to the internet and look up where to find it. Oh, I know where to go. Let me go to that place. And then I go to that place and then I find it and then I have it and it's like, okay, cool. As opposed to wandering around randomly, fucking around and finding out. And then like bumble my way into a like doorway in the side of the mountain and wander around. Probably get my ass handed to me a few times, had to reload several saves, but finally come to the end of the dungeon like, oh shit, what is this cool thing that I just found? Like that's my preferred way of playing.
Mm-hmm. Also, Celestial Nighthawk is a super fucking fun helmet. Nico, I love that so much as somebody who loves playing Hunter. But yeah, no, like I agree, Lucas, and like the way that I have played Destiny mostly is not dissimilar to that, where like I will just play along and fuck around, and sometimes I'll look up like builds, and then I'll tinker around until I'm like, I want to throw like, ooh, void grenades seem fun. I want to throw a lot of those, and so then I'll play around and be like, oh, I really wish I had something like an item with demolitionist on it, so it would help me throw more grenades, and then I'll go and like dig through my arsenal of guns, or go find somewhere to like farm or craft something that'll help me do that, and then I kind of just go that way, and that's helped alleviate some of the like, I'm gonna grind to get exactly the thing that I want. You know,
also, I just have no patience for like grinding and percent drops. I have no patience for that. I'm like, oh, I have to do this really like tough, time consuming thing more than one time to maybe get it. Pass. Aphrodite said, my problem with games like that, Lucas, is I get lost in them and end up doing a lot of nothing. I'm like a goldfish. You know what? That's fair. That's completely fair.
And again, with Destiny in particular, that's one of the cool things about like they have basically weekly bounties and stuff like
right,
that.
Yeah.
So like it'll be, oh yeah, here's the Vanguard Strikes playlist, which is just like a PvE, like do some short like dungeon missions basically. Dungeons are also a kind of much higher level difficult content, but you know, for sake of argument, they're basically like dungeons that take you like 5 to 10 minutes to run.
Yeah.
You're gonna do this week's set of strikes on this subclass, like be arc or be void or be solar, and you'll get a piece of powerful gear that will, you know, that will drop at the end of that.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think, a nice way of Destiny being like, hey, do more than one thing.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? That's Nico said that's by design, and I get that. That makes, you know, but I gotta say, when it comes to the whole like, you know, percent drops and mechanics like that, I like, fine, whatever. It's cool if that's what it is. I can live without like the like extra like 2% increases in whatever my stuff. But, and this is the thing that just drives me up the fucking wall. I've played a lot of World of Warcraft. Like a lot of World of Warcraft. Not a lot by the standards of the people who play a lot of World of Warcraft, but I've played a fair amount. Please, for the love of God, stop gating narrative shit behind raids. I'm not gonna do them. I'm not gonna do them.
Sub point here. If you're gonna do that, make your raids fucking accessible. I'm super tired of
do the like Star Wars: The Old Republic does a good job of this, where they have versions where you get like there's like the solo version of a lot of the raids in it, where you can basically you summon in a support droid or whatever that basically like heals, tanks, and DPS, and then sort of like also overall boosts your like your level to basically make you into like, and then also lowers everything else, like the difficulty of the raid itself, so that it is soloable. And I think that's very cool, and I like that kind of thing. Lucas, I have played a normal amount of World of Warcraft. Yes, yes, I have. I've played a normal amount of World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
I have
I was
not.
just gonna say 14 is exceptionally good at that. Not only do they have the option to do like dungeons and raids and stuff like that with a set of AI companions, which it'll be slower, but you also they just through the way that they've designed the game and like attaching some currencies and rewards to like low to mid-level content, they keep old raids and dungeons populated so that like when you're playing through the game for the first time like me in the year 2023, you can still get queues and you can still go through it without having to wait 2 hours for the right number of people to be online at the right time to do this raid that you want to do. Final Fantasy XIV retroactively made one of their raid series required for the story, but that specific set is just way easier. Yeah. So, like it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Trill said that's cool. You got a DMPC droid to back you up, and yeah, basically that's what it is. And of course, like the trade-off is that you don't get if you're doing the solo versions, you don't get access to like the cool equipment and rare drops that you would do if you were doing the actual raid with a raid group. But if you're like me and you don't particularly enjoy raiding and you don't enjoy getting into a pickup group for a raid with randos, then like it's a great way to not have the narrative stuff gated behind needing to do that. Which, hey, listen, I'm all about the narrative, okay? I want to know what happens at the end of the story. Don't make me grind through hours and hours of content of a story only to then say, okay, you can't see how it ends until you find a bunch of random people on the internet to coordinate with and play this game. Like, don't make me do that. I'm not going to.
Surprise, I'll just not play the end of your day.
Yeah. I have no idea how any of I am very familiar with a lot of the storylines in World of Warcraft. No clue how any of them end. No idea.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah. Just don't. The TLDR of this is, don't make me raid. I won't. No, in all seriousness, if you have the right group of if you have a guild to raid with, it can be and the right group of people in that guild, it can be really fun, and I have experienced that as well. Like it can be absolutely a blast. But like in general, like I feel like the common experience tends to be like, I just want to get through this raid and it's taking all kinds of coordination. Now we got to sit here and wait for the raid groups to populate. And here we are, like, okay, it's been about 2 hours and we're still not moving. All right, and okay, we're still queuing up, and somebody just dropped out. Well,
yeah, that's the majority of my time that I spent raiding in Guild Wars 2 was sitting in LFG looking for people who would do anything. And then like people would get tired of waiting, or we wouldn't kill the boss on the first try as fast as like top raid guilds did, and so they just abandoned. Like
have you ever noticed? Okay, have you ever noticed that particular player is also the one who ignores all the raid mechanics and gets absolutely wasted, and then they get mad at everybody else for not clearing the boss quickly, and then they leave? It's always the one who's like fucking fault it is.
Oh yeah, no, it's always the guy who's a fucking keyboard warrior from the floor where he's dead. That is just sitting there like
calls. I'm gonna need you to follow calls. It's like, you're dead, dude. Don't talk to me.
Yeah, like I'm sitting here
floor tank.
Like half floor tank. Like I spent the last 2 weeks putting together the fucking ascended gear so that I could chrono tank in raid series in Guild Wars 2, and I'm learning the boss, and I have made a handful of mistakes that did result in some of the group taking a little extra damage. You are currently dead because you stood in 4 AoEs back to back.
it always seems to be like that guy, the super like toxic, like tries to play everybody, tries to like play everybody's like roles for them, you know, and then they end up getting just destroyed because the healer is done with their shit and doesn't want to heal them, and then they quit because they don't clear the boss. Like, it's just,
wow, you're using a suboptimal DPS skill there, Mr. fucking Dragon Hunter. I'm like, I have a DPS meter open. Would you like to know how much damage you're doing from the floor?
you're using a suboptimal DPS build. You're using a suboptimal human fucking being build. Please go away.
Anyway, please don't be toxic to your to people in raids.
Don't make common decency your dump stat.
Yeah, don't make. God, I want that on a T-shirt.
Right?
Yeah, I want that on a T-shirt.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah.
I'd wear that. Don't make common decency your dump stat. Also, Chronotank. Damn. Yeah. Chronotank. If playing Elementalist in Guild Wars 2 was like having to learn calculus, Chronotank was a time, and that's pun not intended. Chronomancer.
Yeah. Incredible.
But
Man.
yeah.
I like how we said we were gonna have a free range ramble and we just spent the whole time talking about video games.
It's been on my listen, difficulty and accessibility and gameplay styles is something that is perpetually on my mind as a game designer. Like it's fun for me to think about, and anytime even going back to like old games, it's fun to see how like game design philosophies have changed over time.
Yeah.
And how like it's always fun, I think, to see elegant gameplay, elegant game design at work. Thank you for the clip, Hermes. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that we just sort of like found a groove and just sort of like stuck with that through the whole episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't always happen, but
no. But yeah, no, it's cool. I've been itching to talk video games for a while, just because like I've been experiencing. I feel like so many of these topics we come back to them a lot, but they're evergreen because like we're always changing, you know, like we're always changing, our perspectives and tastes are always changing and stuff like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah. You play new games, you learn something new, and it gives you a new perspective on it, you know. So like, and of course, like always, one of the beauties of this show, I think, is that like we get to have guests on, and then like they'll bring an interesting piece of the conversation to us. Suboptimal human being build was also an excellent turn of phrase.
Yeah.
You're a suboptimal DPS build. Well, yes, I am. This isn't a DPS golem. Have you tried not using a suboptimal human being build?
Listen, I played DPS for one reason and one reason alone. It's because I'm not smart enough to play anything else. I'm not smart or fast enough to play anything else. Look, it's well known that DPSs are the himbos of MMOs.
Yeah, what's the Nico said, and as with every other industry, indie does it best. What's the quote? It's something like, I want more expensive games made by people who are paid more to work less that have worse graphics. I love that quote. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I enjoy tanking in FF14 dungeons, but there's a reason my character's named Icarus. Wall-to-wall pulls every dungeon.
Yeah.
I just made every healer player in this chat anxious.
As a DPS, listen, I'm just happy to be here. I know we're a dime a dozen, and you do not like us populating your dungeon queues. It changes nothing about your day, but like, you know, I'm just happy to be here. Give me a big stick and point me in a direction. Let's go.
Resto Shaman, mate. Anxiety spike. Listen, I play... The only tank that I play consistently in 14 is a drain tank with a bunch of AoE. So I just run into big packs and then spam AoEs and hope that my healer is paying attention. And if not, I have the button that turns me into a zombie. So...
Well, we are now at the end of our stream, everybody. Yeah.
I do actually have a cat to go feed, so...
I do have a me to go feed, so...
That's important.
It is important. And before anybody asks, yes, I have eaten today. It's reaching that point in the day where apparently I have to do it again. It's ridiculous. I have to do it more than once a day.
I hate...
Yeah. Anyway, I have been drinking water. You see this? You seeing this? Look at this. Look at this. Both of these.
There's so many waters here.
Yeah, I have been drinking water. Gemini. Oh my God, Gemini.
Oh my God.
Hello.
I don't know.
Thank you so much for the 10,000 bits.
Oh goodness. Oh wow. Way to send us out. I mean, but no, I feel like
wow.
Damn, Gemini.
I'm
hello. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow.
Hello,
okay.
Danny. We are just wrapping up actually for the evening, but we've been talking about video games and like accessibility in video games, difficulty, like gameplay styles. So that's what we've been talking about a lot tonight. I honestly like it's been a very, very fun conversation with a lot of interesting like questions and takes from a lot of people on screen and in chat. So I highly recommend watching the VOD on this one.
Absolutely.
in fact, I'm gonna rewatch it too because there's a lot I don't know.
I know if you do and find yourself rewatching or watching the VOD and not present here and have opinions about the things that we talked about tonight, get in the Discord, and where you can continue this conversation. I am very interested. Like, I genuinely asked these questions that I asked during this episode because I want to know people's opinions about them. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're watching this and it is after the live broadcast and you have opinions about the things I asked about, get in the Discord. I want to know what you think.
Get in the comments.
Gemini, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really genuinely appreciate you and your presence here within our community, and your enthusiasm for the things that we do here. And it just always, your presence never fails to be a boost to the way that I feel about what we're doing. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to go. I'm going to eat. John's going to feed a cat. Freeman's going to return to the woods, as is his nightly ritual. And thank you so much, everybody. Reminder to World Builder patrons, as well as anybody who might be thinking about it, we currently have a poll up on our Patreon to ask about sort of opinions about what we might be doing for our next actual play. So if you've got opinions and you want to share them and you haven't yet, you should do that in the Patreon. There's a poll there. Go check it out. We've gotten, I think most of our world builders have already voted. So this would be a great time to join the world building tier if you are interested in that. But yeah, otherwise, those are really our big things: Discord and Patreon. So go check those things out. Thank you so much, everybody. Next week, that is the 24th.
Yep.
February 24th. We will be right back here at our brand new time of 6 p.m. Pacific, with a very special guest, somebody that you know and love, the one and only Bree Denon. Bree will be here to talk about who knows what. We'll probably nothing, a little bit of everything. Who knows? It'll just be fun to have. It'll be fun to have her. So
frankly, we have to all four of us just catch up and chat about things.
Absolutely. It occurred to me just a few days ago that I actually haven't had a conversation with Bree for months, and that's unacceptable. So
Wow.
yeah. All right, everybody. So we'll see you here next week for that, but if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone.